Hello, everyone, and welcome to this spoiler review episode for episode 2 of Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso did episode 1 last week solo because my brother was busy with a number of other things. My brother is back. My Geek Buddy's brother is back. My season 1 Ted Lasso review brother is back. Shannon McClung, how are you, man?
Good morning, Johnny. I haven't heard that new opening Outlaw Nation review theme music. It really got me into the mood. Maybe not for European football,
Hey,
but it's indicative.
They do call it a shootout for a reason, so it can go many directions for sure. But yeah, we're gonna get into Ted Lasso episode 2. Once again, this is a spoiler review. This is not going to be the normal kind of approach we have at Geek Buddies review. This is more of a free-flowing conversation about the second episode here. It is called Lavender, but we will be spoiling things. So if you haven't seen the show, go and watch the episode and come back and hang out with us and watch the rest of this review episode because we will spoil some stuff that happened in the episode. Just a reminder as well to subscribe to the channel down below. Hit that bell button as well. Come and join me on Twitch at the Outlaw Nation. And the patreon.com/John Rocha. And of course, listen to Shannon and I and Michael Vogel on the Geek Buddies every week on our shows and multiple reviews that we do here on the Outlaw Nation channel. All right, let's get into this one. Shannon, first of all, let's get your thoughts. Did you like the opening episode from last week? I know we didn't review it together, but did you enjoy the opening? We laid a little bit of groundwork with Dr. Sharon Fieldstone. We got a little more of the dating situation with Rebecca, Keeley, and Roy, kind of figuring out what they are. Jamie Tartt's on a reality show. But the team itself, although everyone's happy and doing well, the team itself is on a run of draws and hasn't won a match this whole season in the lower tier. So what do you think about this overall first episode, and how did you feel about the second episode overall as well?
Super enjoyed it. The great thing about the second season is they started shooting this before the Ted Lasso wave had really started to crest. So this is what this is the story that they wanted to tell outside of any sort of expectations of what a second season was going to be. Yeah. I love where we found the team. I think it's really funny that they have all of these draws, and Ted Lasso's thought of like, oh well, this is what I get wishing for a draw. The karmic gods are repaying me right now. I love how Nate has sort of asserted himself in this assistant coach position, and how he's writing young Will, the new equipment manager. Yeah. I love the relationship that Ted and Rebecca have now. I mean, it's really sweet. And now we get this. I guess we would call her an antagonist, like Dr. Sharon. She's the only one who's not kind of doesn't fall in love with Ted Lasso right away. She's very clinical. She kind of keeps people at a distance, but you see the connection she has with the players and how they all love her and how she's able to help Danny Rojas kind of shake off the shock of killing Earl the Greyhound. Yeah.
Poor Earl. I love it. Earl. It's so perfect. Earl Grey tea. It's just perfect. Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I was looking forward to watching this next episode.
Yeah, we jumped into the next episode. Let's get through it. I mean, there's three or four main storylines that seem to be being set up for the season here. The Jamie Tartt situation, we talked about in the finale of our season 1 review. We talked about whether we'd see Jamie Tartt again. Well, we saw him on a reality show in the first episode. In this episode, he gets voted off right off the bat, and it's about him kind of working his way back onto AFC Richmond. And I got to tell you, Shannon, I'm a soccer fan. Football fan. I enjoyed the storyline of Jamie Tartt last season. I was enjoying where the storyline was going this season. But I do want to say right off the bat, I thought it strained a little bit of credibility that no team would want Jamie Tartt. I've seen mercurial strikers find places to ply their trade all around the world, even though they might be difficult to deal with. Mario Balotelli is a great example of the fact that this, just because a guy is mercurial, has problems, off-field problems, it doesn't mean that teams don't value their ability to score. I think this is across all sports, Shannon. So I thought that strained a little bit of credibility, but I liked what the overall story was here with Jamie kind of working his way back in. This isn't the same Jamie that left. This is a more humble Jamie. This is a Jamie that recognizes he has issues with his dad. This is a Jamie who's trying to find himself. So what did you think about this whole second episode dealing with the Jamie Tartt storyline, having him see Keeley, having him beg Ted or ask Ted to come back, and then at the end of the episode, even after the conversation with Sam, he is back that Ted had with Sam, he is back with AFC Richmond.
I definitely see your point of view about that even if someone does have sort of some off the field problems, that they would still find a home. Like, you can't deny their sort of physical ability. I mean, Dennis Rodman never, kept getting signed.
Yeah.
That being said, I mean, the way that Sam had talked about Jamie, like, since he's been gone, have we had any punch ups in the locker room? I think for the story, like, I don't think it strained credibility as much as you do, but I mean, I do see your point.
Yeah.
But like, if someone is notoriously toxic in the locker room, I could see, like, sure, for the story that works. Like, nobody wants you. How Phil Dunster has never played a vampire before is shocking to me. Like, watching him walk out, like when he does that interview on the morning show. When he walks out, I was just like, I feel like he should either be sparkling or pulling a wool cape over his face. What's Jamie Tartt's such an interesting character because we don't like him, but we do. Like, it's sort of like it's a lot like what the early seasons of Game of Thrones did so well, is that you introduce these sort of vile characters and you start to feel sympathy for them, and then you start to really like them. As he's walking out of that studio and he's signing the soccer ball for the kid, he's signing autographs, he's taking photos, like, you do feel a lot of sympathy for him, because it's just like, okay, you have been kind of a dick in the past. You clearly have been humbled. Like, not only does no European football club want you, but you can't even, all your only option is to do more reality shows. And, And, we find out when he told Ted
3 weeks in a row. Yeah, exactly. No.
Which, kill a man.
That would kill a man. They'd have no spine by the end of those 3 weeks. Yes.
I love the interaction between him and Ted. I love that sort of hat in the hand approach that we've never seen. I love that he leads it off with, like, the little army guy. I was like, oh, that's fantastic. And just sort of like, Ted has been just this beacon of optimism. And even though he was incredibly friendly and incredibly polite, there was an arm's length sort of approach that he had to Jamie. Like, Jamie, I don't think it'd be a good idea. And watching how the team reacted just to seeing the photo on social media. And then, I mean, Sam, I think Sam probably had a little bit of an overreaction. I'm guessing Sam doesn't normally do that to people if they do something he doesn't like. But then seeing the immediate 180, like, oh, coach, I'm so sorry. Coach, I'm so sorry. And then by the end, he does bring Jamie Tartt back. It's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing?
Because of the conversation with Sam. It's such an interesting twist there, because Sam was really open and vulnerable with Ted and said, like, I'd never felt beaten down like I was with Jamie Tartt here. I never felt so useless as I did with Jamie here. But my father says that with you, I'm in good hands. There was also that running kind of storyline about dads. Jamie has that conversation with Ted about his dad. Jamie's dad and Ted's dad, they exchange stories about their interactions with their fathers, and then you add Sam's dad, and that kind of turns Ted around a little bit, saying that he wants to give Jamie a second chance now, where initially he didn't think it was a good idea. So, I mean, and even Coach Beard and Nick didn't want him to come back. Nate didn't want him to come back. Even though Higgins did, and in the end, Ted did as well. So the Diamond Dogs, I guess Ted gets an extra half vote when it's a tie in the Diamond Dogs because he's the coach. So Jamie Tartt coming back onto the field, certainly going to wake a little some stuff up, and let's swing back around to that point in just a second.
Well, let me ask you.
Sorry. Go ahead, Shannon. Yeah.
Do you think it's purely because of the conversation that he had with Sam, or do you think it's also that moment he had with Dr. Sharon at the end of the night where she said,
I wanted to swing back to that as we talked about that storyline as well, but definitely, Shannon, let's put a pin in that real quick. Yeah, let's move on to Dr. Sharon Fieldstone. We got more with her this episode. She's presented to us with her riding in on that cool ass bicycle, which is pretty awesome, to be honest with you. And then, which is also perfect for her character, right? It's whatever she needs to do to get to the next thing, she's willing to use it, but it has to be compact. It has to be easy to put away so that she can not be bothered with it, right? So it's kind of a little subtle hint of her personality. Ted kind of barges in on her, has these treats for her, biscuits for her. She refuses them, says she doesn't eat sugar, but she eats a little bite just to be kind, but then says she doesn't eat sugar. And she reveals a vulnerability here, which I think is fascinating, Shannon. She says that you wouldn't have liked me in the past when I had sugar. I could devour, I don't know, which is an entire Cadbury thing or whatever, and I'd be blathering nonsense, right? So this was nice because in the first episode, Dr. Fieldstone felt like she was very clear about what she was and who she was. But here we get a little bit of vulnerability. And then Ted kind of sits down, asks her what her favorite book is, and she disarms Ted by telling Ted, so this is your way of getting to know people. It's very disarming. I understand the tactic. And so she disarms him after he tries to disarm her, even though he's not intentionally disarming her. It's more of a subconscious approach to things. And this causes Ted to go, and eventually he walks out or she walks out, and eventually Ted heads on over to Rebecca, and they have an exchange about therapy and how they don't need it. That's what friends are for. They can talk about their feelings, and then they both immediately put their walls up in talking about their feelings because Rebecca slams the computer closed as soon as Ted walks in because she's obviously on a dating site. But then later, Dr. Sharon Fieldstone is watching the team, and Ted feels a little self-conscious, and she does keep moving closer and closer.
Keep getting closer.
It's so brilliant. And then
like
later,
like a cat in a YouTube video.
Yeah. But at the end, what you brought up just a couple minutes ago, as Shannon is correct. Like she ends up outside with Ted after having witnessed the practice. It's nighttime. They're going home, and Ted has this interaction with her, and she mentions how everyone's really nice here. Everyone is so on top of it. Everyone is gets along. They hear each other out. It's such a great thing. And Ted's like, we have a pretty cool thing. He's, yeah, but you guys have 8 draws and you haven't won a game. So you wonder if that's really the approach. So it's fascinating that this show, which has been all about, and everyone's been trumpeting it from the mountaintops, it makes you feel good. Well, here's a second season where we're starting to explore whether feeling good all the time is really the way to bring about the best results to win. Does it work in a sports atmosphere? And so you brought up, so let's talk about that, please, Shannon. What were your thoughts about Sharon Fieldstone? I think it's Fieldstone through the episode, and then that conversation that possibly led to Ted opening the door to Jamie Tartt.
To me, I feel like up until the end, up until actually Ted sits down with her and she talks about how like what he does is disarming. It seemed a little unnecessarily adversarial to me, like someone shutting, like she shut the door in his face multiple times. So to me, it's kind of like that doesn't seem like the way to make a connection with someone. But at the beginning, she wasn't there for everybody. She was there for Danny. And then Higgins saw the outcome, the result of him chatting with her and how that seemed to help everybody. But by the end, I did like that not only when Ted said, so is this one of those if it ain't broke, don't fix it situations? It's like, well, is 8 draws not broke?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like it's great that everyone is feeling good, but at the end of the day, they're a professional football club and their job is to play and to win. Yeah. And if they haven't done that yet, like that's where maybe she can come in and assist. But I did like how she also by the end did tell Ted what her favorite book was. Like she finally did kind of circle back to that initial question that she that she dodged because she wasn't ready for him to get to know her yet. So I like where that relationship is going, but I also wonder with Ted bringing back Jamie, as I said before, is this a direct result of the conversation with Sam, or is this him hearing like, okay, she's right, we haven't won a game. We have someone that could possibly help us win a game, but who could also be trouble behind the scenes. Is it worth it? Like, I'm curious what his motivations are. And I imagine we're going to be finding that out in episode 3.
Absolutely. And, it makes sense that she'd resist Ted because Ted is human sugar. And she says she doesn't like sugar. Sugar is bad for her. So her
perfect way to put it.
Her closing the door, her limiting contact to him, that's her resisting the sugar. Like that is Ted Lasso, or limiting the amount of exposure she has to that in order to control her own thing. And Prince of Tides is about a psychiatrist starting a relationship with one of her patients. Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear that Prince of Tides and that movie that it was based on the Pat Conroy book with Nick Nolte and Barbara Streisand, they get into a relationship in the movie and in the book. So I don't know if that's teasing a relationship between Ted and Dr. Sharon Fieldstone, but I think that's on the table that Prince of Tides is one of her, which also is about her violating her ethics to be with a patient of hers as well. So will Ted be the guy that kind of makes her violate her ethics in a way, and help somebody else and help in a certain way or question herself in a certain way. It's going to be fascinating to see the push and pull between these two. And I think they cast it perfectly and that it's working well to make Ted reconsider things or look at things in a different way or have his authority questioned in a way that makes him think. Ted's a great thinker, and he makes the moves based on that. So I like that. And there's more to come. Shannon, you're right. There's more to come in this interaction between these two for sure as we go along. Let's move on to the other storyline here, and that's Roy and Keeley. We get more of Roy Kent and Keeley. Roy is, still coaching that young girls' soccer team, or his niece's soccer team, and he's a hard ass about it, but he's resisting being a pundit. He's resisting coming back to the game of football, as we saw in the first episode, struggling with post-retirement life, struggling with not being able to be part of a team and playing. And then we get him going back and forth about it with Keeley. And then eventually she walks in on Keeley after he's lost the game. And Keeley is there, she bopping herself, to use a Cyndi Lauper term, to Roy Kent's press conference. I thought it was going to be Jamie Tartt's something with Jamie Tartt. I thought maybe her and Jamie Tartt were on the phone. I was like, oh my God, no way she's doing this. But because they had met in the coffee shop earlier. But yeah, then that moment, but then you realize it's his press conference. But she, kind of goes back and forth with him and says, you got to do this. You got to take a chance. Don't be afraid. Stop being afraid that, that it's something new you can control. You got to put yourself out there. So he agrees to do it. He goes on there, Shannon, and initially it's a debacle with the cuss words and stuff. But because this is a little bit of a sitcom and they, everything seems to happen really quickly, all of a sudden people are loving him on Sky Sports. This is another part of this that strains credibility for me because I'm a massive Premier League football fan. I know Sky Sports. I know the Saturday show and the Sunday show and all of that. There's no way they wouldn't have just stopped going to him after the first couple of cuss words. But for the storyline, for the sitcom aspect, it works, and then making him somehow unique because he uses cuss words as if that's never happened on that show before when it has, I think was an interesting approach. But of course, you got to remember, this is for a majority, is probably, aimed at Americans who might not know about this stuff as much, and so they're willing to accept it. But at the end, he comes back, and it looks like he's had a good time, and he goes down on Keeley as a thank you. So, do you think we've moved past the Roy Kent situation in terms of having issues? Will he now kind of become this pundit? But we also have the Jamie Tartt situation in this, Shannon. I want to ask you about that as well. We have their interaction at the coffee shop. She tells Roy about it. But then also Rebecca, in the last shot of this this episode, she smiles at Keeley when Keeley sees Jamie Tartt come onto the field along with Higgins and Dr. Sharon Fieldstone. So what is that smile about? After you talk to me about Roy, tell me what you think that smile was about.
The impish glee that Roy Kent had at the end of the first episode as he's watching Jamie sort of prostitute himself on this reality show. I mean, it was so fantastic. And then to hear all the other yoga moms talk about how much they like Jamie, and you see just that just that immediate 180 on his face of oh, I hate this guy. I love what they're doing. I mean, I love what they're doing with Roy. I think it's really, really funny that his sort of soccer outlet is coaching his nieces, 10 and under team or something. Yeah. But
burn this memory to your brain. Yeah, exactly. He's so good.
And I feel like it's Brett Goldstein, right? That's
Brett Goldstein. Yeah.
I feel like he's gotten even more gravelly since season 1. I don't know if it's the extra beard length that did it, but I think it's even more raspy. But yes, I mean, I had the same fear. And I, obviously they deliberately shot it this way that, we close on a shot of Jamie and Keeley. We go to Roy finally doing this pundit thing and apparently doing very, very well. And then him showing up at Keeley's apartment and there's nobody around. And whenever someone has to call out for someone twice in a television show or a movie, it's usually bad news.
Yeah.
But then to watch how the video that Keeley is using is the thing that turns her on the most about Roy is when he's vulnerable.
Yeah.
I thought it was really, really sweet and really funny. The thing with Jamie coming back, I mean, there's clear, okay, so we've resolved Roy's issues about being a pundit, about using this as, again, sort of his his football outlet. We haven't resolved the issues because up to now it's just been kind of a running joke about him coming back to the team.
Yes.
And we chalk that up initially because he's kind of a grump. He doesn't necessarily want to hang out with Ted. The fact that he talked about Ted riding on the back of the riding lawnmower, being like, it's like he's home. It's the closest thing he can find to a Dodge Ram. But clearly he has some unresolved issues because going back to that team that he's no longer a part of, that's probably a very, very sore spot for him. And especially knowing that Keeley's also there and now having Jamie come back, this, I wouldn't even call him a rival for her affections. I mean, I think Keeley's very much in the Roy camp, but knowing that, okay, my girlfriend is hanging out with my old buddies and now her ex-boyfriend, of course, Roy is going to have to come back in some capacity.
Right.
I thought for sure he was going to be an assistant coach. I don't know if that's sort of the ultimate goal because he has now coached young girls, and at that point, if you can handle that, I mean, I think you can you can handle a bunch of whiny professional dudes.
Right.
But yeah, that moment where Rebecca does kind of give that smile to Keeley.
What is that?
I don't know. I mean, I think at first in my head, because Rebecca wouldn't have been as privy to the locker room politics, I guess, locker room goings on, that she wouldn't necessarily know or remember, like, oh, that's right, Jamie was the cause of a lot of strife behind the scenes. I think she maybe sees, okay, maybe we're going to start to win, like having Danny Rojas and Jamie Tartt. Like, maybe now we're going to start to get some wins.
I didn't look at it that way. Okay, yeah.
But that, I mean, I can't think that it's anything more than that because at this point, Rebecca, since resolving her season 1 storyline about trying to, sabotage the team, Rebecca seems pretty pure to me. So I don't feel like she would get any sort of joy out of watching a new close friend of hers have to hang out with an ex.
But this is also her progression into her power, right? We saw in the first episode, she was dating that dude. If you see Breeders, it's the guy that was Daisy Haggard's boss in Breeders. She was dating that guy, and then eventually Roy had to call her out and go, "You're settling for second best." And so she kind of dropped him, right? Because she wants to kind of embrace a stronger move forward for herself. And then Keeley comes in when they're having the conversation about her doing the dating profile in this episode, and she says, "Rich." Well, no, it's not arrogant to put rich as long as you don't say filthy rich. And then she's deleting filthy letter by letter. So she has still this instinct to be something of power, something of note, and a little more of an impish a streak as well herself, along with Roy. So is this going to manifest itself in some way here to maybe undercut the situation? Maybe she does have a desire to see this team kind of sink or not do well still inside of her to mess with her ex-husband. I don't want to believe that. But that smile could go a million different ways, man. But I like the way you're looking at it. You're looking at it like Ted Lasso, and I respect that. I'm looking at it like the evil Ted Lasso, and I don't know what's going to come of that smile. But it was a brilliant thing for them to leave you with that note. They could have just been looking at Jamie, but to have her look at Keeley and do that little smirk smile, I'm like, what? So I like that. So we'll see. Definitely, Shannon, we'll see what that means as we go forward in the season. Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to hit on? The Higgins getting moved out of his office constantly, which is a great running joke so far. Or Will and Nate, their issue there. Nate treating Will as Nate was treated by the staff before Ted Lasso showed up. This is something that seems to be like an obvious thing that's going to come to a head. No one seems to be calling Nate out on it. Anything you want to say about either of those two things?
Well, I do love the running gag of Higgins with the office, and now we're actually going to see these two storylines kind of collide because Higgins is going to share that office with Nate, and you can tell right off the bat Nate is not okay with this.
Yeah.
One, partly because you imagine he worked so hard to get this, and now he is having to share it. Now it's kind of being taken away, and Ted didn't talk to him about it. Ted just sort of assumed like, oh, you're okay with this, right? It's really, it's really
just like
really
Higgins didn't talk to Ted about bringing in the psychiatrist for the full season, right? It's wheels within wheels, man.
And Ted Well, but also like with Sam, he presumed Ted didn't talk to him about bringing Jamie back, and then when he actually did, he again didn't talk to him. So there's a lot of presumptions going on amongst our characters right now. And I mean, I think they're setting the stage for a big sort of Richmond blowout, which what's a hallmark of good writing is when you have characters that you love and you don't want to see them fight.
Right.
But ultimately, if they don't fight, if they don't have that conflict, it can kind of be a boring. It can be a boring story. I mean, that's why. I mean, for me at least, Captain America: Civil War is still to me like one of my favorite Marvel movies because you hate watching these people fight because they're like, no, I like all of you, and I think we're gonna have the same thing in Ted Lasso. Like, we don't want to see Ted get into it with Nate. Right. Or with Rebecca or whomever, like that's what brings us back as an audience. That's what's captivating viewing.
Yeah, you don't want to have your standard 3-camera sitcom, which is always the jokes and everything working out. The reason Ted Lasso stood out is because there was stuff that he really confronted. That divorce in the first season, Rebecca trying to undermine him from the first moment she brought him on as a coach. So there were these kind of more nefarious storylines working behind the scenes, and then eventually it all kind of worked out for him in a positive way, but not without some struggle. So, which makes it different than your standard sitcom. What you see here is a little bit more now. Now they've written themselves in this corner. Everybody's happy and go lucky and cool. What do you do now that the team is not performing well? So bringing in Jamie Tartt will be an interesting change for the AFC Richmond culture. And also, if it starts to lead to wins, I got a feeling, Shannon, that we're going to start to see the old Jamie pop up as the season goes along. Because right now he's hat in hand and he's humble. And like most things, you're humble until you start to feel your power again. Then all of a sudden your swagger is back. And human beings, most of the time when they get their swagger back, don't learn the lessons from when they were down on the ground. So we shall see if this is a real sea change in Jamie Tartt, or if this is kind of a little bit of a smokescreen for him to feel good about himself again. We shall see. So I like that they've laid the groundwork for a number of potential blow-up storylines or confrontational storylines, but still keeping the spirit of the show intact. So good stuff. All right. Anything else to say? Are we good?
No, looking forward to episode 3.
Me too. Oh, and shout out to the music in the episode. I think it worked really well in certain moments. Certainly the moment where Jamie Tartt comes out and sign the autographs, they were doing that redemptive music cues. Brilliant. And then the stuff with Roy Kent and Keeley later on, I thought that was really sweet as well. And let's get more from that assistant coach of Roy Kent with that team. I felt like she called him out on his crap, and I like that. So let's get her more scenes, for God's sakes. All right, well, that's our review here of episode 2 of Ted Lasso season 2, Lavender, because the lavender smell on those towels, damn it. And I am not the biggest fan of a lavender smell, so I get it, Nate. I get it. And that's our review. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let us know down in the comment section what you thought of the season 2 episode 2 rather of season 2, and what you thought of this review as well. Hit a like on this video and subscribe to the channel and hit that bell button so you see all the stuff we're going on. Shannon, thanks again. Where can they find you and what we got going on, my man?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy, and you can see me every week with Mr. Rocha and with Mr. Mike Vogel on the Geek Buddies.
There you go. All right, y'all take care. Oh, yeah, you can follow me at the Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. The Outlaw Nation on Twitch there, and the patreon.com/John Rocha. All right, that's enough from us. Y'all take care of yourselves. Be well. We'll talk to you next time with another brand new spoiler review here on the Outlaw Nation. Believe!